Welcome back to another episode of Just Another Number. First number of the day, 14. Since the Great Depression of the early 1930s, there have been 14 U.S. recessions. Now, I bring this up only to start the episode because it's rightfully titled, The Cost of Greed, Profits Over People. You have all of these corporations and these companies. Well, let me back up. Greed and capitalism go hand in hand. It's like a perfect marriage. Capitalism produces greed because at the end of the day, it's about money. It's not about anything else. All it's ever been about is money. They literally put profits over people. This is what they do. Every day, you and me are forced to get up and probably go work somewhere we don't want to work. And effectively, what we're doing is just making someone else richer. That's essentially what we're doing. We get up, we go to work to make another person rich and make a company rich while they give us table scraps. They give us just enough to keep coming back. I think this was mentioned by one of my guests in the wage slavery episode. And I thought it would be fitting. I need to do an episode talking about greed. So, what is greed? What is greed? Greed is an excessive desire for wealth or material possessions, which goes beyond a normal desire for financial security or comfort. It is often characterized by an insatiable and uncontrolled desire for more, and can lead a person to take unethical or even illegal actions in the pursuit of their goals. The pursuit of profit and power can sometimes lead individuals and organizations to prioritize their own interest at the expense of others or the environment. In short, greed is an extreme form of self-interest that ignores the well-being of others and can have negative consequences on society as a whole. Greed, in my humble opinion, is a human condition. A terrible human condition. People can't seem to be satisfied with what they have. They always need more. You need more money when you already have enough money to where all of your needs are being met. You could take care of your family. You're not missing any meals, but you still have that insatiable appetite. I need more. More. You have to have more. Like I said, greed and capitalism go hand in hand. It is a marriage made in hell. And capitalism just produces greed. It basically just fuels it. So, is greed learned behavior? Or is it genetic? It's a good question. One can truly never really know. Because sometimes the environment, the conditions of your environment may produce the greed. People can just never be satisfied with what they have. You know, I've often asked this question. How much money is enough money? How much money is enough money for you? Now, I always joke, people who know me in real life, I always joke with them and say, hey man, if I ever hit the lottery, I would be satisfied with anywhere between 60 and 70 million dollars. And it's like, oh, that's kind of low. Nah, not really. It's not low for me. It's not low for me and how I plan on living. It's not low for me and my lifestyle. I don't need to have 1 million cars. I don't need to have a big ass house. I don't need all that. I just don't. I can be satisfied with what I have. And I think that's one of the problems. That's one of the biggest problems in society. But again, capitalism fuels this shit, man. Capitalism fuels it. People will sit up here and tell you all the good things about capitalism. They will tell you capitalism is basically the best thing since sliced bread. Like, it's the best thing that's ever happened. And some people might be inclined to agree. But getting back to the question, what is capitalism? Well, I'll tell you what capitalism is. Capitalism is predicated on competition, and competition is fueled by greed. Companies that prioritize maximizing profits are often willing to cut corners, exploit workers, damage the fucking environment to achieve their goals. This win at all costs mentality can result in negative externalities, such as pollution, resource depletion, all types of shit. Ultimately, it fucks up society as a whole. It's like they don't care. All they give a fuck about is the money. That's all it's about. That's all it's ever been about. And as long as we have capitalism, that's all that it's ever gonna be about. People rarely do things these days out of the niceness and the kindness of their hearts. Usually people do something with the anticipation or expecting to get something in return. That's what I see. I see a lot of that now. And I can't say I blame them, because that's the environment. These are the conditions that we live in. And not only that, people just take advantage of a person's kindness. Is there a link? This is a stupid question. Is there a link between capitalism and greed? Well, of course there is. Of course there is. There's always been a link. I don't know which came first. It's basically the chicken or the egg question. Does capitalism produce greed, or did greed invent capitalism? Both can be true, I guess, right? It's all about money. They call it capitalism for a reason. People walking around here, probably even you watching this video, if you're a regular, everyday, average, I don't want to say average Joe, because, just an average person, regular get up, go to work, go home type person. You ain't a capitalist. You ain't no capitalist. They'll brainwash you and have you thinking you a capitalist, but you ain't no capitalist. You a consumer. You're a fucking consumer. A capitalist is someone who has money. A capitalist is someone who will capitalize on a situation. You ain't capitalizing on no situation. If all you doing is getting up and going to work, you ain't capitalizing on shit. A capitalist. What a capitalist will do, they'll see something unfolding, and then they'll think of an idea. How can I capitalize on this situation, good or bad? How can I capitalize on it? That's a capitalist for your ass. Usually what a capitalist does is just take advantage of the person who's not in that position. Capitalizing on something. That's usually what a capitalist does. I would like to be a capitalist, I would. But if I'm being brutally honest here, my moral code kind of forsakes me being a capitalist. See, because when you become a capitalist, most of them, and again, nothing is absolute, but most people who are capitalists, they're willing to put the boot on the neck of the little guy. And it's just, I can't do that. I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel right trying to take advantage of someone. I don't feel comfortable doing that. It's like, how do you fucking sleep at night? How do you sleep at night knowing you got billions of fucking dollars and you got all of these people, over 500,000 people fucking homeless, kids going to bed starving? What do? You shut it out of your mind and say, oh, well, there's nothing I can do about it. I can't do anything about it. Bullshit. Everyone can do something. And no, I don't have all the answers. I don't know if charity's the answer. But I just know for a fact you didn't get all that money by doing it, how can I say, doing it for the right reasons. Being morally correct. You don't get to that type of level without having to, let's just keep it nice for YouTube, crack a few eggs. Or in some of y'all cases, crack a few heads. You know, throughout the history, the government has had to regulate capitalism. Because see, if you leave capitalism unchecked, that's a fucking disaster. Because of what? Because of greed. They had to come up with laws. They had to make laws to tell fellow capitalists, hey, you can't hire 7 or 8 year olds. They had to literally create child labor laws because they didn't have the common sense of wherewithal to say, hey, maybe we don't need to be working these kids. No, it ain't about that. That's cheap labor. See, it's all about that almighty dollar. It's all about making a buck. That's what it's really about. They literally have to come up and craft fucking laws to put capitalism in check because capitalism is unethical. Now, when people see this video, they're going to think, oh, you're an anti-capitalist. What are you, a socialist? What are you? Don't put a label on me. You can't put a label on me. I am specifically pointing out the inadequacies, inefficiencies of capitalism. It doesn't work for everyone. And it hasn't worked for everyone. Especially a lot of people of color. Just calling it what it is. Just calling a spade, calling it what it is. Truth is truth no matter how you see it. No matter how you try to run from it. What is regulation? What is regulation? Regulation refers to the set of rules, guidelines, and standards that govern the behavior of individuals, organizations, and institutions within a particular industry or sector. Regulations are developed and enforced by government agencies and bodies to ensure that businesses and individuals act in accordance with established norms and standards, with the primary goal of promoting public safety, protecting, let me say that again, protecting consumers and preventing unfair and unethical practices. There's that word again. Unethical. Regulations can take many forms, including laws, policies, and guidelines that establish rules for activities such as manufacturing, production, finance, and employment. Some common types of regulations include environmental regulations that impose limits on pollution or chemical use, occupational safety regulations that ensure safe working conditions, and financial regulations that protect consumers and promote stable financial systems. A lot of stuff in the news about the banking collapse. Not gonna get into that on this episode. Regulations are typically developed through a process of consultation and collaboration between government agencies, industry stakeholders, and public interest groups, and are subject to ongoing review and revision as circumstances and needs change over time. Yeah. A lot of regulations need to be updated, and a lot of capitalists do not like regulations. Because why? It gets in the way of the money. It gets in the way of the money. The effectiveness of regulations can vary depending on factors such as the level of enforcement, the consequences of non-compliance, and the level of community engagement in their development and implementation. Look, man, if y'all not paying attention to what these companies, to what these corporations are doing, if you're not paying attention because, like I said in the last episode about the bread and circuses, if you guys are just fucking completely distracted all the fucking time, like the majority of you are, then they're gonna do this shit right in your face. I mean, they're literally hiding in plain sight with these things. Democracy, and let me tell you something. Let me just give this briefly. I learned this maybe when I was 24. I learned this from a conservative fellow. And he said, democracy and capitalism can't coexist. And at the time, I didn't know what he meant by that. But as I got a little older, I started to understand. You see, capitalism and democracy can't mix. They can't go together. They don't mix. Because capitalism is all about the money. It's always been about the money. Democracy is supposed to be all about the people who you put in office. But see, what you have in America is you have a system that capitalism bleeds into democracy. Thank your Supreme Court for that. Most recent addition to that was the Citizens United ruling in 2010. You can go look that up if you don't know what the hell I'm talking about. But it goes back even further than that. It goes back to the 1970s. Again, you need to read up on your history. A capitalist will tell you a corporation is a person. Let me repeat. A capitalist will tell you that a corporation is a person. How the fuck can a corporation be a person? It's about money. They argued in these courts that money is akin to free speech. Really? Money is speech? When you ever heard some money talk? I mean, I know they did a movie, Money Talks, back in the 90s. When you ever heard some fucking money talk? And if you heard some money talk, you probably gonna shoot that shit. Listen, man. Democracy and capitalism can't coexist because lobbying exists, which is bribing. You got the capitalist who has the money, who has the millions. It's bribing the politician that participates in this so-called thing we call democracy. And that people, see, man, people are suckers. People are fucking suckers because y'all fall for this shit, hook, line, and sinker. Y'all fall for the advertisement. You see some shit thrown at you, and then you just fucking fall for it. You just fall for it. The minute you see something advertised to you on television, whether you slightly agree with it or not, you take it as fact. You take it as truth. You know, unless it's something you just completely disagree with, and then, you know, your mind is already made up, so you've already written it off regardless. But they throw this stuff at you. These politicians throw these things at you. Oh, this party's bad for this reason, or that party's bad for this reason. And they know most people ain't gonna research nothing. They know you ain't gonna research nothing. Because people complain about, I don't have the time. No, you got the time. You got the time. It just ain't high on the list of your priorities. That's what it is. You sit up there. You find time to do the shit you want to do. You find time to watch a series on Netflix. You find time to binge watch some shit. You find time to make time for your spouse. You'll find time to do whatever it is that you want to find time for. But when it comes to staying informed about your government, you ain't gonna find time for that. Boy, shit is sad and disappointing. But again, it's greed. A capitalist already has, you've already won. You know? And when I mean a capitalist, I mean like a real capitalist, okay? I mean, when I mean by capitalist, I mean somebody who got bank, who got money, who got shit in the stock market. Even if it ain't in the stock market, you got money, okay? You ain't the average person status. That's what I mean by capitalist. Because again, I've already differentiated between capitalists and a consumer. Most of us are consumers, which allow the capitalists to get rich. Because we consume the shit they give us. We've been domesticated. We don't know how to farm. We don't know how to do shit on our own. These cities have made us lazy and complacent. And that goes across racial barriers and gender barriers. And that's another thing they do. They just do all this shit to divide us. Not saying that we don't have racial problems. Not saying that we don't have problems in these different communities. Of course we fucking have them. And part of the reason we fucking have them is because these rich capitalists, these rich billionaires and shit puts this stuff out here for the old divide and conquer strategy to keep people divided. But people don't see it. They're not looking at the bigger picture of shit. But I asked the question, you know, do we need regulations? You're damn right we need regulations. Now, don't get me wrong, you need a balance. Because there is a such thing as over-regulating some shit. I mean, like, you can't, that's when I understand a little bit when you get too bureaucratic, too much red tape. Now you just doing shit just to do it. No. See, when it becomes too much, I get that. But there definitely needs to be some type of regulation. You got your libertarians, they don't want no government, hardly no government at all. They don't think the government should do shit. They think the free market should just run everything. No, see, that don't work. That don't work because greed. The government has to regulate the free market. Because if the government didn't regulate the free market, you'd be crash after crash after crash after crash after crash because of the human fucking condition that I've already explained in the beginning. The human condition of greed. So, I asked another question. What is the government regulating? And do we really need regulations? Well, I answered that last part. So, I got 7 examples. Came up with 7 examples of how the government has imposed regulations. You see, you got the EPA, that is the Environmental Protection Agency, and you know, what is the EPA tasked with doing? They tasked with watching out for the fucking environment. That's what they tasked with doing. And they have to do that because a capitalist, at the end of the day, what a capitalist is going to do, they don't give a fuck about the environment. It's all about the bottom line. Again, profits over people, people. Profits over people, people. The EPA. Let's see what I wrote. EPA is an independent executive agency of the United States federal government tasked with environmental protection matters. President Richard Nixon proposed the establishment of the EPA on July 9th, 1970. It began operation on December 2nd, 1970, after Nixon signed an executive order. Richard Nixon, a Republican. Of course, he wouldn't fit in today's Republican Party, but a Republican. The Republicans of today don't like the EPA. The Republicans of today don't like the EPA. That's a fact. It's not being political. This is a fact. You can fact check this. They don't like the EPA, even though it was started by a Republican. Crazy how this works, huh? The other one was the next one, the FDA, Food and Drug Administration. The FDA is a regulatory agency of the United States federal government that is responsible for protecting and promoting public health and safety by regulating food, drugs, medical devices, and other products. See, people today, they take shit like that for granted. You know, because we weren't alive. Majority of us were not alive in a time where these agencies didn't exist. So you didn't understand what people had to go through. You didn't know about the things that they were putting in. I mean, well, shit, they still putting the shit in our food. They still poisoning our food with all these chemicals and stuff. All these chemicals that are so-called been grandfathered in that they haven't actually run tests on, which are doing all of these things, causing all of these, whatever. The FDA operates under the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and is responsible for regulating and ensuring the safety and effectiveness of products such as prescriptions and over-the-counter drugs, vaccines, medical devices, and other products that are regulated by the agency. The FDA's responsibilities include testing and approving new products, monitoring their safety and effectiveness, and taking appropriate enforcement action when necessary. But some people even saying the FDA done been bought off now. If you don't know, look up and see how the FDA is actually funded. Yeah, that's gonna blow your mind. In addition to regulating foods and drugs, the FDA also has responsibilities related to tobacco products, radiological products such as x-rays, and medical equipment that use radiation, and cosmetics. The agency also has the authority to remove products from the market if they are found to be harmful or ineffective, and to issue recalls or warnings to protect the public. Yeah, this might have been the original mission statement, but I don't know if that still applies today. Overall, the FDA plays a vital role in ensuring the safety and efficacy of a wide range of products and promoting public health and safety throughout the United States. Yeah, it sound good. Sound good, right? Yeah, it sound good. That's another form of regulation. We needed that regulation. Hands down. When you leave a company or corporation or just business, when you leave them to their own devices, morality goes out the window. Again, capitalism, baby. It's about that mighty dollar, that almighty dollar that they worship. It's all about the money. It's not about nothing else. Profits over people. People, they don't give a fuck about you. Can't be more clear. Can't be more clear. Another form of regulation that the government has provided. Now this one makes more sense. Because even the government cares about its money. The Security and Exchange Commission, SEC. It's a regulatory agency of the United States federal government that is responsible for enforcing federal securities laws and regulating securities markets in the United States. The SEC was created in 1934 as a part of the Securities Exchange Act. And its main purpose is to protect investors, promote transparency, and ensure fairness in the securities market. The SEC has the power to oversee and regulate securities exchanges, brokers, dealers, investment advisors, and other securities market participants. See, they care about their money. See, you can't have capitalism go unchecked. You can't have that. You can't have that. The SEC's key activities include interpreting, enforcing, and implementing federal securities laws, regulating securities, markets and exchanges, conducting investigations into securities fraud, and overseeing the financial reporting and disclosure of public companies. Yeah. The SEC has the authority to bring civil lawsuits against individuals and companies that violate securities laws. And it can also refer criminal cases to the Department of Justice. The agency also has the power to adopt new rules and regulations to keep up with changes in the securities market and to ensure that investors are protected. They always gonna make sure they protected. Y'all just seen what happened with the SVB Bank, right? Yeah, we ain't gonna get into all that. Again, I might do an episode on that, maybe not. Overall, the SEC plays a vital role in protecting investors and maintaining the integrity of the United States securities markets. They only care about people with money. They don't give a fuck about you, the little guy. That's you and me. I ain't no multi-millionaire. I ain't no big superstar YouTuber yet. And I do say yet. I'm manifesting this shit on camera. But the difference is, when you get your money, what you do with it? How do you act? Can you hold on to your morality? Will you still be able to hold on to your morals, or will you forsake them for the simple sake of some money? And that's the challenge to capitalism. People will forsake their morality. You will forsake your moral code just to get a buck. How do you sleep at night knowing you done fucked over a family? How do you sleep at night? How you sleep at night knowing you ripping off and you underpaying your employees while you taking large bonuses off of the work they did? How you sleep at night? You can't have a conscience. You can't have a conscience. I don't see how you could do it. But whatever. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA. That's another regulatory agency of the United States federal government that is responsible for ensuring safe and healthy working conditions for Americans by enforcing workplace safety and health standards. Again, none of us were alive. None of us were alive during the time of, like the 1800s, early 1900s, when they ain't have all these, they ain't have all these standards. Safety wasn't a big thing. Because remember, it's capitalism, baby. That almighty dollar comes before everything, probably even God himself. That's how they feel. OSHA was created in 1970 by the Occupational Safety and Health Act, and its main function is to develop and enforce workplace safety and health standards, and to provide education and training to employers and employees on how to prevent workplace accidents and injuries. Basically, it's an agency that goes around and audits these companies to make sure they are operating within safe means and have safe practices. And before that agency was even created, it was a fucking free-for-all. Just like everything. Everything was a free-for-all before you had regulation. Now, am I pro-regulation or against regulation? There has to be some form of regulation. It has to be. Because when you leave humans to their own fucking devices, you get the worst out of them. Greed. Again. You get the worst out of human beings because greed is a human condition, and a terrible one at that. Employers are required by law to provide a safe and healthy working environment for their employees, and OSHA provides standards and guidelines for employers to follow to ensure compliance with these requirements. Employers who violate or fail to comply with OSHA standards and regulations can face fines and other legal consequences. Look, man, to keep it simple and plain, shut the shit down. Shut down your business. You in there proven to be an unsafe working environment, they shut you down. They shut you down, you lose money. You lose money, you lose your mind. That's pretty much all this is about. It's about money. But these companies get a slap on the wrist anyway. Fines don't be that large. They can do it. They ain't worried about it. So that's OSHA. They play a great role in protecting the health and safety of the workers across the country by basically making sure these employers are playing by the rules, providing safe working conditions. At least they're supposed to. I know there was a case, there was something going on, I forget the state, I don't know if it was Alabama, or basically child labor laws being broken. Got kids working in these manufacturing plants and stuff, or auto industry plants. I'm trying to remember, I'm trying to get the story correct. I could be way off base, but we going back to it. History is literally repeating itself. You had child labor issues in the 1920s. Here we are in the 2020s, and we still having the same problems. History fucking repeats itself. Oh yeah, here's a big one. Another form of regulation. Y'all like these forms of regulation? Let me know in the comments if you mess with them. The Federal Reserve System. Ooh, boy, it's a lot of controversy around the Fed. As soon as you even bring it up, Federal Reserve, centralized bank of the United States. Yeah. The Federal Reserve System, sometimes referred to as the Fed, is the central banking system of the United States. It is a complex network of 12 regional banks and a board of governors, which is located, and you guessed it, Washington, D.C. The Federal Reserve System was established by Congress in 1913 with the goal of stabilizing the nation's economy by regulating the supply of currency and credit, controlling inflation, and managing the country's banking system. The Federal Reserve's main responsibilities include conducting monetary policy. The Federal Reserve sets interest rates and adjusts the money supply to promote a healthy economy. I mean, this is taking place today. Jerome Powell is keep raising interest rates. You know, every time they raise interest rates, they cause an artificial recession. So, you know, if you're trying to put this in political terms, Jerome Powell is a holdover from the Trump administration, aka a Republican, and Biden left him in office. He left him in his position to do the job. So some say he's trying to crash the economy so he can help get a Republican elected. I don't know. I don't know how much truth it is to that. Could be. Number 2, regulating financial institutions. The Federal Reserve supervises and regulates banks, credit unions, and other financial institutions to ensure they operate safely, effectively, and are in compliance with the laws and regulations. Providing financial services, the Federal Reserve provides important financial services to the U.S. government, banks, and other financial institutions, including processing payments, providing loans, and offering other banking services. The Federal Reserve System also plays an important role in promoting stability in the global financial system by working with other central banks around the world. Overall, the Federal Reserve System is a crucial part of the U.S. financial system and is responsible for promoting a healthy economy and maintaining a stable financial system. Now you can go in there and Google and look up the history of the Fed, and you get a million different answers. So I'm gonna leave that to you. Another form of regulation here. The Federal Communications Commission, or the FCC. It's an independent regulatory agency of the United States federal government that is responsible for regulating the nation's communications infrastructure, including television and radio, broadcasting, cable, and satellite television, wireless and wireline communications, and the internet. Yeah, the FCC's. The FCC was established by the Communications Act of 1934, and its main goal is to ensure that the nation's communications infrastructure is efficient, safe, and reliable. The FCC's responsibilities include regulating interstate and international communications. The FCC regulates communication networks and services in the U.S. and ensures that the services and equipment meet certain standards. Again, regulation. Again, a regulation that I believe we need. The FCC is responsible for licensing and assigning frequencies to broadcasters, wireless carriers, and other communication providers. I ain't know that part. I ain't know nothing about that, honestly. Protecting consumers. The FCC takes measures to protect consumers from unfair or deceptive business practices such as telemarketing, fraud, and spam. Again, you need these regulations in place because if you left it up to capitalists, here come that greed. That greed sets in. And then from that greed, the mentality comes in. Profits over people. Can I say this enough? Managing public safety and emergency communications. The FCC oversees the deployment of emergency communication services and is responsible for ensuring that the communication networks are available during emergencies. And I gotta admit, that's a little bit of a tough task because we've all seen this when we have emergencies. People are flooding that 911. They're flooding it. So much so to where some of these systems get backed up because they weren't prepared to deal with such an influx of calls. But again, where would we be without it? Where would we be without it? Promoting competition. The FCC promotes competition among communication providers to ensure that the market remains open and accessible to all. The FCC also plays a key role in shaping the nation's communication policies, particularly with regard to new and emerging technologies. It works with industry groups and other federal agencies to develop and implement policies that promote innovation and competition in the communication industry. I don't know about all that. I don't know, honestly. These companies, America used to thrive off competition. We ain't got that no more. People just trying to get the bank. People just trying to make the money. That's how I see it. And then, last but not least on my list of regulations that the government had to impose, the Civil Rights Act of 1964. That's right. They had to come up with a law to train people to be civil. Couldn't just do it on your own. Nation of laws. You had to make laws to tell your people to be civilized. At that point, you already lost the battle. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 is a landmark piece of federal legislation in the United States that outlawed discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. The law was enacted during the civil rights movement and was passed after years of activism, protest, and political struggle. They don't recognize our struggle now. They don't recognize our struggle now. The Civil Rights Act was signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson on July 2nd, 1964. The law is widely considered to be one of the most comprehensive pieces of civil rights legislation ever passed by the United States Congress. Its primary provisions include prohibition of discrimination in employment. The Civil Rights Act prohibits discrimination in employment based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. Prohibition of discrimination in public facilities. The law also prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, or national origin in places of public accommodation, such as hotels, restaurants, and theaters. Oh, man. Protecting voting rights, or protection of voting rights. Yeah. The Civil Rights Act granted federal oversight and over state and local election practices to ensure that African Americans and other minority groups were not being denied their right to vote. I pause for effect, as they say. Enforcement provisions. The law also created various enforcement mechanisms to ensure that it was being followed, including the establishment of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Overall, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was a key milestone in the struggle for civil rights in the United States. Its provisions helped to dramatically reduce discrimination in many areas of American life, laying the foundation for further advancements in social justice for all Americans. Social justice. It's like a dirty word nowadays, huh? The government had to step in and regulate some shit. They had to. They've always had to. When you leave things in the hands of the people, well, I guess it depends on which people. I don't know. We have these scars on our humanity. You know? It's all about money. It's all about greed. That's all it's ever been about. At the end of the day, it's about money. It's about growth at any cost. Growth at any cost. It's just about money. So what do you think? What do you think about this? Do you think greed? Do you think like in the 1980s movie, the Wall Street movie, do you think greed is good? Do you? Is greed good? I sure as hell don't see it as being good. Nope. I don't. So can we do something to change this? Is there some kind of movement we can start? Something that's going to be productive? So, like start getting money out of politics. Can we start doing that? I believe things would change if you just start taking money out of politics. I don't see that happening no time soon, though. unless you start getting morally upright people elected into these positions of power. But that's even if you believe in this little thing we call democracy. So look, tell me in the comments what y'all think, what y'all believe. You know, is greed good? Is greed bad? And what can we do about it? Or are we all just another number?